And even if it's not written, if it's implied, if it's understood, but the best ones are the ones that we write. You agree with that? Good. Very good. So when we look at budgeting, we ought to look first at what the Bible has to say. We read this text this morning, and I just want to touch on it again. It says, will a man rob God? Yet ye have robbed me. But ye say, wherein have we robbed thee? In tithes and offerings. Ye are cursed with a curse, for ye have robbed me, even this whole nation. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there shall be meat in mine house, and prove me now herewith, said the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven, and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground. Neither shall your vine cast her fruit before the time in the field, said the Lord of hosts. And all nations shall call you blessed, for ye shall be a delightsome land, said the Lord of hosts. So, what is a budget? And you can talk back to me. Any definition? What is a budget? Okay, a list of what you're going to get in and what you're going to put out. Anyone else? Call it a plan. Okay, plan of how you're going to spend your money, and a plan of how you're going to earn your money. First of all, a budget gives a complete picture of your financial situation. When you're planning your budget, you're told that you ought not to leave anything out, no matter how simple it is. You ought to account for every dollar. I have a friend who, as a part of his budget, he said he puts $5 in his ashtray every week in $1 bills. And that is his budget to give to whoever begs him on the street. You know, you have these guys that come up at the gas station and at the traffic light and they ask you for something. He said his budget for that is $5 per week. And when that $5 is done, he's finished for the week. Until the next $5 comes in the next week. But he plans every dollar. So it gives us a complete picture of our financial situation. It also makes us more cautious in our spending. Because if you know what you have coming down the road, you're more careful about how you spend today. Am I right? When you don't know what's coming down the road, you're heading for problems. But a budget allows you to be aware of what is down the road. It makes you more cautious in your spending. Then it gives you peace of mind. Because if you know you have the month covered, you don't have anything to worry about. There's some folk that tell you, oh, I have more month than money. That's a problem. That is a big problem. Because you shouldn't have more month than money. Your money should be budgeted to take you straight to the end of the month, straight to the end of the next pay period, then let me put it that way. Okay? So, it gives you peace of mind, makes you more cautious in your spending. I think we missed one just before, so I'll go back. It helps you to avoid problems. It really helps you to avoid problems. So these are some of the reasons that will help you to keep a budget. And then it also, this is skipping. Okay. It gives you an opportunity to support God's work more generously. Do you believe that? Because if you have a budget, you know exactly, first of all, what is God's and what is left over. And once you have those two areas separated, you have a better opportunity because you have a better guide as to where you're going with your spending. And so the question is asked, who should have a budget? Anyone? Everybody, right? Everybody should have a budget. Every household, every family, every working person, everyone with any type of income. And notice I said any type of income, because there are some folk who don't work, but they have an income. They may not be in the majority, but there are folk who do not work and have an income. Everybody, I'm coming to that. Retired folk, yes. Everybody has need to have a budget. So let's go back to number one, a complete picture of your financial situation. There are two major components of a budget: your income and your expenditure. What comes in and how it will go out. You need to be very clear as to what those figures are. Those must not be estimated figures, because when you go to the gas station, when you go to the grocery, those figures are real. They're not estimated. Last week, my wife and I went to a grocery store, and a lady walked past us with a bright smile on her face. "Hi, how are you?" We said, "Fine." And we thought that was the end of it. About 10 minutes into the grocery, she came back around and she said, "Excuse me." And I thought she was asking to pass. So I stepped aside for her to pass. And she stopped to my wife. And she said, "You think I can have $5? And my wife looked at her and said, "So why you walk past him? Why you didn't ask him?" Meaning me. She said, "No. You all look like you all are together, and I'm not going to approach the man, so I came to you," meaning her. She gave her the $5. And that was the end of the story there. But people have ways of tapping into your budget that you didn't plan for. Am I correct? You need to know when and how to say yes and when to say no. You think that's important? Because if you give away what you didn't plan to give away, something is going to suffer down the road. So it's important to know what your budget allows. Your income is fixed salary for most people. For others, it's an additional earning. And for some, it's extra earning. Some folk have more than one job. Some folk have apartments. Some folk have investments. Some folk collect their pension. Some folk have annuities. So the various things come together to comprise your income. And you need to know exactly what those figures are. God is the owner because he's the creator of everything. Genesis 1, verse 1. So even though the money comes into you, remember, it's really not yours, because we are stewards. Very good. So, knowing that God owns everything, whenever we receive our earnings, the first thing we have to do is to acknowledge where it came from, because we are grateful stewards. So we thank him. There are many people out there who have no jobs, have no opportunity to receive an income. We are blessed because we're not in that category. Am I correct? So we must acknowledge him. We get what we got from him. And Proverbs 3, verse 9 and 10 says, "Honor the Lord with thy substance, with the first fruits of all thine increase." Now, what does it mean by with the first fruits of all thine increase? Pardon? Before anything comes out. Now, that used to be very easy some years ago. But today, that's not always the case. Because for a lot of folk, by the time they get their salary, so many other things have already been taken out. If you get paid through the bank, and you have salary deductions, the mortgage is already gone, the car loan is gone, the insurances are gone. But in principle, you must know what that figure is. So when you get it, the first thing that you know physically you are going to take out is going to be the Lord's portion. The Lord's portion. And you do that by faith too. It calls for faith to do that. Because sometimes you have income that may be late. You understand what I'm talking about? Somebody owes you some money. They tell you it's going to come at the end of the month. And it's a week late or 2 weeks late. You know, proving God means returning his portion even before you receive it from the other person. Sometimes you may have an apartment on rent, and the rent may not have reached yet. Do you still wait until you receive the actual money in your hand to return a tithe, or you return the tithe in faith, knowing that God will honor your faith? These are some of the things that you need to think about. So, generally speaking, the first fruits of your income means before you do anything with your salary that you have control over, you should take out the Lord's portion, his tithe and a faithful offering. So we put him first. Malachi 3:8-12. Tithe, offering, and the offering can take many different forms. The tithe is straightforward. There's no if and ands about that. Mission projects can be something separate and apart from the offering that you return to your church. I mentioned that this morning. If you want to send money for Bibles for folk in Africa or in Russia, that shouldn't necessarily come from your offering, because your offering is designed to take care of the local church. None of the tithe that is collected stays in the local church. Your offering runs the local church, the air conditioning, the painting, the maintenance, the cleaning, bathroom supplies. That is what comes from the offering. So you can't take that in all good conscience and say, well, I'm going to send it this place this month and that place the next month. Otherwise, the local church will suffer. Okay? And then there are many stories in the Bible that talks about how the Lord rewards our faithfulness. The story of manna, I mentioned this morning. The manna came 6 days. There were Israelites who went out on Sabbath morning looking for breakfast. Could you imagine that? After the Lord told them what they were supposed to do through Moses. Some of them still doubted. Went out Sabbath morning looking for breakfast, and there was none. God is true to his word. Elijah and the poor widow, she said, I only have what is left for one last meal for myself and my son, and we're going to eat that and die. And he said to her, I understand that. He didn't argue with her. He said, but before you do that, make a small cake for me. She stepped out in faith, obeyed the prophet. And the Bible says the barrel of flour and the flask of oil did not run out. God will honor your faith. Did not run out. After feeding the 5,000 with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, we are told that Jesus told them to gather the fragments so that nothing is wasted. And there's a whole lesson and sermon in that, so that nothing is wasted. 12 baskets came back. So after 5,000 men, because we are told that there were more women and children than there were men, but back then they only counted men. So we can safely say after about 10 to 15,000 people had eaten, there was more left over than they had when they started. Isn't God amazing? Peter with the fish, when asked about taxes, what? Told him, go and catch the fish. Take what you get out of the mouth of the fish and go and return the taxes. There's no excuse not to pay what we owe, not to be good, honest citizens. Don't rob the government. There are plenty of vendors who don't pay any property tax. And then they want God to bless them. He said, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God. Our expenses, basic necessities, rent, food, gas in our cars because we got to go to work to get the salary. Then you have luxuries. Instead of buying a Nissan Note, some people want an Escalade. But do we need an Escalade? No. It makes you look good, okay. And there's nothing wrong with that, if you can afford it. He says, I am come that you may have life and that you may have it more abundantly. God wants us to be well taken care of. Nothing wrong with driving the Tesla, but you don't drive a Tesla and then can't buy food. Huh? You remember when satellites first came out? You saw all those big dishes on the house, and the house had the roof belly in because they couldn't support the dish. All over the ghettos. Just to say, boy, we have satellite, but we can't afford food. Makes no sense, eh? Luxuries. And then future plans. We should always plan for the future. Every budget should have a line item called savings. Plan for a rainy day. Go to the aunt, consider his ways. Look at how they prepare for the winter. Expenditure. The basic necessities we already spoke about: shelter, groceries, utilities, entertainment, transportation, insurance, social events, food, clothing, medicals, and extras. All of those are things that we are expected to have and to take care of. Now, the question is asked, are we going to have less if we return to God first? And we all know the answer. We touched on that this morning. You don't lose when you give to God, when you put him first. The 90%, the 80%, whatever is left, when God blesses that, it goes so much further because we have placed him as the priority in our lives. It is not returning to the Lord his own that makes men poor. Counsels and Stewardship, page 36. We must understand that. So, in moving forward, never think that I'm going to be shortchanged because I return to the Lord. It never happens. Number two, it makes us more cautious in our shopping, in our spending. All should learn how to keep accounts. Some neglect this work as non-essential, but this is wrong. All should learn how to keep accounts. We should know what we have. We should account for everything accurately. Accurately. That's why I said, account for every dollar. There used to be a time when people walk the streets and they'll pick up every penny. Today we no longer have pennies. Yesterday I was talking to a lady and she said, something's wrong with these people. I'm walking on the road and there's a 25 cents and nobody wants to bend down to pick it up. She bent and she picked it up. She said, 3 more of these and I have $1. And in connection with this, we must teach our young people the value of money. They mustn't see you as the repository of all that they need. And they just need to come to you and you give it to them. Teach them the value of money. Now, some important tips. When you go shopping, before you go shopping, make a list. I know I'm touching a sore point for some people. There's a reason for that. Do not buy what is not on your list. I tell my wife all the time, if we don't need it, we don't buy it. A special is not a special if you don't need it. And the marketing folk know that. That's why they call it a special. What makes it special? Yeah, but because it's cheaper, doesn't make it. Uh-huh. Okay, yes, and I'm listening to Greta, and I'm hearing sometimes it's not even cheaper. Yeah. The regular price is 99 cents. And they tell you get two for $1.98. Exactly. Yes. They work on our minds. You see, these large conglomerates, they spend millions of dollars doing research to make sure that they know what attracts the mind. To know what attracts the mind. Don't buy what's not on your list. Also, use cash rather than credit cards. And notice I haven't read where possible, because sometimes it's not possible. In some places we go now, you can't. They refuse cash. You go to the airport now to get on American Airlines, and you have to pay for your bag on Bahamas Air. It's only a card they accept it. And sometimes this negatively impacts some people. One time I was traveling and a lady was there. She had no credit card, and they refused to take her cash. And she looked at me and she said, "Sir, you have a credit card?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Can you pay for my bag? I'll give you the cash." So I'll give you extra cash. I said, "No, you don't need to give me anything extra. Just give me the $25 and I'll let them swipe my card." But that is where the world is going. And there's a reason for that, you know. It's called the end of time, when we will not be able to buy or sell. Number two, do not take your children with you. Yes. Okay. You're on the other side of the coin. But let's deal with the heads first, then we're going to come to the tail. When you take your children with you, what do they normally want to do? Everything that they see, not they want, they grab and they put in the trolley. And some of these things you don't see until you reach the cashier. And you look at them, where did this come from? So if you're going to take them, it must be an educational experience for them. Teach them how to do it. Nothing wrong with that. Eat before you go shopping. Why? When you're hungry, you buy more. I told you that they've done the studies. When you're hungry, you buy more. Not only that, if you look around at the fast food chains, there's a color that all of them have in their signs. What is that color? Red. The psychologists say that red encourages eating. It makes you want to buy something. I told you they've done their studies. Okay? So you need to know the gimmicks that they are throwing at you to get to your wallets. Every last one of them, KFC, Wendy's, Burger King, they all have red somewhere in their advertising, because red makes you hungry, makes you want to eat. And you need to know when to say no. Questions you should ask yourself: do I really need this item? The same item before and not used it. Is this an impulse purchase or a planned one? You know, they set up the tables in the aisles and they have the taste testing and try this, try that. And then you end up taking 2 bottles and putting it in your trolley. Then it wasn't on your list. Why are you being controlled by the external forces? If you don't need it, don't buy it. You can't miss what you never had. Okay? Some of us, we buy things, we put it on the shelf, it collects dust, 3-4 months, we look at it. Oh boy, this expired. And we have to throw it out. Why? We didn't need it to start out with. Okay? Do I have enough money to support my buying? Now we're talking about getting into debt. God's people should not be in debt. Because if you're living by a budget, you should know what you have to spend, what is necessary, what is required, and then if you have any expendable or additional income. Will I regret this purchase later? Am I a good steward in managing God's money wisely? Just some of the questions that you will want to ask yourself. You bought a 40-inch screen smart TV. A few weeks later, they come out with the 55-inch model. The room is still 10 by 10. How far are you going to sit? We say bigger is better, but that's not always the case. Buy what you can afford, buy what suits your situation, and avoid the rest. Don't be sucked into spending unnecessarily. You know, there's no problem in upgrading from time to time. It becomes necessary. If you have a bubbler, the way smartphones are now, after 2 years, for the most, they're obsolete. Sometimes you can't even find parts to fix them. So out of necessity, you may have to upgrade. But when it's not absolutely necessary, there's nothing wrong with keeping it. I have a car I drive outside, it's 20 years old. 20 years. The average American used to change their cars every 3 years. It has moved from 3 to 8 because of the additional expenses. You have to know how to manage what you have. Okay? So we should say no to impulse buying. Leave the temptations alone. You'll have a better savings and you'll also have peace of mind because you won't have to worry about paying the credit card company the interest, which is extremely exorbitant. They tell you, oh, it's only 3%. It's not 3%. The average credit card is 25% interest. And that's compounded. And don't get comfortable in paying the minimum because you'll never get out of it. They want you to pay the minimum. That's why they tell you to keep this card active. You only need to pay $10 a month. But you have $1,000 on the card. When are you going to finish paying off for that card, paying $10 a month, and the interest is being added every month? We have to understand what the folk out there are doing to us. I was telling somebody Thursday night, lending institutions are not in the business of empowering you. They go into business for one reason and for one reason only, to make a profit. And they don't care who they make their profit from. They are in the business to make money. And you have to understand that, and the sooner you understand that, the better off you will be. The Bible tells us that the borrower is a slave to the lender. So, we must practice economy. No worker should manage his affairs in a way to encourage debt. Manual for Canvassers, page 65. Yes, sir.
Now that you say that, it just occurred to me many years ago, I wanted to get some furniture. I think we had just moved back to Nassau from Eleuthera, and they asked for about so much down. I came up with that down payment thinking it was going to offset how much I would borrow from them. Instead, I guess they took it and basically put it on a fixed deposit. So let's say I wanted to borrow $5,000. They said, okay, $1,100. They put that on a fixed deposit and still loan me the $5,000. But I don't remember the exact amount, but I'm pretty certain what I was paying back in interest far superseded the little interest they gave me against my certificate of deposit. So by doing that now, they charge me all this interest to borrow the 5. Yes, I have a CD, which they took 1,100 and loaned it to somebody else for probably but 15% and may have given me 2 or 3%. So they win twice.
That's correct. You must understand, I'm coming to you. The average loan that you take out, if you follow their amortization schedules, by the time you have completed paying for the loan, you have paid for the item 3 times. At least 3 times. If you follow their amortization schedule. So it's better that you save and buy it cash when you can afford it. Yes, Sister Penn.
I just have, speaking about furniture, there was once a store here in Nassau, through Palmdale in the shopping center called Home Furniture.
Yes, ma'am.
They used to lend you they used to get furniture without interest. You had to pay it off fast. Now I learned that from my mother, who was a stapler. Home furniture. When I say staple, when she needed something.
Right.
But she was able to pay that off right away.
Those are we call those the olden days.
Good old days. Now, I don't know what happens now, but you hear people in the U.S. are saying, this is President's Day weekend, I think,
Mhm.
and this is the time you buy furniture. And they say, if you pay it off before, and this is my question to you, if you pay it off within a year or within 2 years, is that so? Because I don't trust that.
It can be, and let me explain to you. You have to understand that you have to look at your financial situation. You must not be a slave to your credit card. Okay? Credit cards are dangerous. I have a credit card. Oh, sorry. We have a credit card because it ain't mine. It's ours. But we use that credit card when we travel so that you don't have to travel with the cash. But the cash is in the bank. So when we return, you pay it off in full so that you don't pay any interest. No, they don't like that. You see? And when they notice that you're doing that, you now start getting letters, emails. We have this available. Come in and you can get X amount of dollars. And because they're trying to find a way to make money from you. So you can't be a slave to the credit card. The biggest thing now is online shopping. So, especially since COVID came in, people couldn't travel anymore. So they found a way to get you in the shop without getting you in the shop. So you order the item, you just need an address, you swipe the credit card or send them the number, they send the item to you. It is a multi-billion-dollar program. That is how Amazon became what they now are. People don't many folk don't leave home anymore to shop. Some places you don't have to, you don't even have to go to the grocery store. You can buy anything and everything and have it delivered to your door. The gimmick is there, but you pay the price heavily after. Heavily. So watch out for the dangers of credit cards. They can be very helpful and very convenient. They can be a threat to financial safety. Try to use cash as much as possible. Know what your interest rates are before you get involved in it. Okay? And then, if possible, leave the card at home. Because for some people, they can't control themselves. They don't think that, okay, I have to pay this at the end of the month. Or I have to pay this off later. All they see is the ticket price and the cash is not coming out their pocket right away. They're just sliding in plastic. Not understanding that, hey, come the 30th of the month, we have a problem. And then if you're in those countries where it affects your credit rating, you have serious problems because now you have to dig yourself out of the hole going forward for anybody to trust you getting anything. It is. That's true. So what folk are encouraged to do sometimes is to take out a small loan, something that you can manage, and to pay it off early to build up some credit. Because if you go to the bank, some of these lending institutions, and you have no credit history, you've never borrowed from them, they see you as a risk. So they don't want to lend you anything because you have no record of paying back anything. Sometimes parents do it by adding their child to their credit card. And sometimes that could be dangerous. You watch Judge Judy. Some of these children carry their parents through the ringer. I mean, they spray in those cards to the extent, and the parents don't know until the bill comes. So you have to know your children. But there are ways to there are ways to get around it. Yes, sir.
There's something, I don't know, many of you are aware, it's an ongoing program in development where our credit rating is gradually being implemented. It's been a while since I've been to the bank, but I know they did tell me I had something, and that was several years ago, and they were looking at companies, I think they've already decided, who will implement a credit rating so that it's shared among all of the commercial banks. So they are developing that right within the Bahamas. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
It catches up with you. So
Yeah.
inland revenue, and they have a credit bureau.
Yep.
It's a bureau of credit. And so I say this, because sometimes, and I think we need to watch this, because sometimes some lending institutions may not clear you off their book. This is a personal experience. This happened, as a matter of fact, this week.
Okay.
All right, with me. And I wrote them a stiff letter, very stiff letter, because I got rid of all of my credit cards. I use debit cards. On my debit card, I got rid of them. And I don't spend what I don't have on my debit card. And, but a particular institution called me and said, well, I turned that card in from 2018. Why are you calling me now? And luckily, I tend to do things online. So when I pay, I was able to send him all the threads below. And I said, you don't see it? I sent you that last night. You called me 4 o'clock. I sent that to you 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, you have to keep good records. You have to keep good records. Yes. Go back 2 slides. Yep. Why am I saying okay? Because
Cards that you get on credit cards.
that is correct. I probably should have spoken to that. The reason this is the advice that is being given, because from a human standpoint, they say that if you have to take the money out of your pocket, you tend to spend less. Even though the debit card is your cash in the bank, because you are swiping the plastic, the tendency is there to buy more.
So
Still.
that's the temptation we have to yield to.
Yes.
But I just feel that the way the companies go here, like I was going to ask Pastor if he wanted to divulge the name, because one of our prominent Bahamian banks is known not to give people money for anything substantial. It's always something that can run away.
Well, I can tell you that. I mean, that's a fact, and not just one of the Bahamian banks. Most of them. It is a challenge to get. I know.
Bahamian Bank.
Yes, it is a challenge for anyone today to get a loan for a project that will empower you. You will get a loan to buy a vehicle in 24 hours because they know that in 2 years, 3 years, you need another one. But you develop a good business plan and take it into the bank or lending institution. Very few persons will ever get a loan. But the only way they give you a loan is that you have to come up with what they call a secured, what's the word I'm looking for? Collateral. Some folk, you want $30,000, they tell you straight and plain, you have to have $30,000 in savings to borrow $30,000. So if you have $30,000 in savings, why you need that $30,000? Because you don't spend your cash. So then that's why you pay the price. No. Yeah. Pastor. Oh, okay. Well, I didn't want to go there today because Sharon's here by herself. But it's the truth. But it's the truth. They take care of their own, you know. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Because we are not a people of trust. We don't trust each other. If you study Chinese history, even right here in the Bahamas, the Chinese don't borrow from the bank. They borrow from their own. That's why we have John Che number what? 15 now. Every time they have accomplished a certain level, they bring in another family and set them up in business without going through the bank. Mm-hmm. When I was a little boy on Robinson Road, the Chinese was renting opposite Portion Control, East Street and Robinson Road. They were renting the store downstairs. Eventually, they moved upstairs and lived upstairs. Eventually, they bought the property. Then they added on Robinson Road to the west. Then they bought the property on East Street to the north. And they almost own the entire block now because they work within their system. They don't go to the bank to borrow any money. They set up the other families and they take care of each other. People of our color, we seem to not trust each other for whatever reasons, but we ain't going into all of that today. But moving, so moving along, okay, yeah, I was saying, can we wait until our cash flow is safe enough to buy, save up until you really need it? Okay, use care in divulging your credit card information to suspicious people. If you go into your bank, they'll tell you all the time, we never ask you for your personal information over the phone. Sometimes you get these phone calls, we just calling from such and such and such, and we'd like to confirm this. That's the time to hang up. That is the time to hang up. They are trying to get your information, and the next thing you know, your card has been maxed out.
Such and such a product, and we need to ship it, and this product is delivered, so on and so forth. Yes, we reset your password, and all of those are scams. Ignore them, delete them. Last time I would say, when traveling, be very careful. When I was traveling to New York, I went and purchased a wallet that has the RFID detection.
The special wallet, yes.
This is another one. Good persons will just walk in the back of you with a machine, scan, and if
Yes.
Your session and wallet like this person, where it will block it, scan it. All they need to do is close it and take that thing and they will scan the information of the card. And then you do that, try and do whatever, max load or whatever. And be careful about the limits you put on a debit card, credit card, debit and make it through the credit card. Because whereas I have unlimited charges, I don't keep unlimited funds on the card. A lot of time I transfer funds, I put it onto the debit card.
Okay.
That's another thing to be careful of.
Yes. Very, very true. Number 5, in the budget, it gives us an opportunity to support God's work more generously. Because the more you have, the more you can give to the Lord. Council Stewardship says, He has placed means in the hands of men that His divine gifts may flow through human channels in doing the work appointed us in saving our fellow men. And so, we must understand that putting God first allows Him to bless our earnings. There's no doubt about that. We can all testify about that. Secondly, Matthew 6 tells us, 33, seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these other things shall be added to us. All not meaning everything we want, but He will take care of all of our needs. All of our needs. God first, all these things will be added to you. What happens to us if we honor the Lord with our substance? He tells us that He will fill our barns with plenty. And He keeps His word. He keeps His word. He will fill our barns with plenty. God will make our presses burst out with new wine. You'll have more than you need. If you want to bless people and ask the Lord to bless you so that you can be a blessing to others, you will be surprised to see how He will multiply that blessing. He will multiply that blessing. God will open the windows of heaven, pour us out a blessing. There shall not be room enough to receive it. We have to take Him at His word. He has promised it. We must believe it. We must embrace it, receive it, live it, because it is guaranteed. Any question? Any testimony? I have the PowerPoints. I will pass them on to Pastor Williams, and he can make it available to you. Yes, ma'am. In goods now. That what they do is that they just take the financial contribution there. They want to see the barrel side, you can't put what they reduce the grade that we
longest.
Yeah,
And it's just meeting once a month, and it's all advertised, and so a person who wants to join can join.
I think it would be a little bit
Majority.
how it works, etc. I was hoping at one time, last year, that there was such a demand that people could get it. There were people who came up and no longer holding that. There were people who came to the church and said, how does it work? Can we have a seminar? All right, so I'm suggesting that we do that.
Yeah.
Because these are people who need help, and they don't want all the, all the frills.
Yeah, right.
Frills
They just need to
Yeah.
be, right.
they don't need everything.
We look at it. We look at
Yeah, please look at that and do a promotion. That's the way I want to go.
Yeah.
To do a promotion
it.
around the churches and let them know that that plan is still available.
Okay.
It's actually getting the administration.
It is actually run by, yeah, they have a voting administration. They have the annual meetings. Yeah. And they will
They
vote
both
people.
people.
Yeah.
We have persons in the office who work with them.
Yeah. Yes.
But I just think that we need to promote that.
Okay.
So that persons don't, if they know that they could be a part of it, they are decided, they don't have to something change the house.
Right.
8,000. Very,
Correct.
it's expensive to go to these places.
Okay, thank you. I passed out a sample budget. I notice emphasis on sample. Okay, it can be adjusted in any way that fits your personal need. Intentionally, there are two things that I do not have on the budget. Anybody notice what those two things are? Tithe and offering. Because it is assumed that this will be done after you have fulfilled your covenant with God. Okay? So there's no slot here for tithe and offering because that should be covenanted and set aside first. After that is done, then you can address these concerns and add anything else that you desire. Some things may not apply to you, you can delete. And I'm suggesting that you sit down, those of you that have children, go through this with them. Some people feel that, what I make is a secret and they don't want their children to know. And then there are other families that sit down and the children know exactly how much money comes in. So when they go to ask mommy for this or that, mommy and daddy can sit down and say, you remember the budget? There's nothing left. So we have to wait until things change. Possible.
7 years ago, thank you, Mr. Boss. 7 years ago, there was a concern as to how tithe and offering should be paid. For example, should it be paid on the gross or the net?
Okay. I thought that question was gone. Yes, ma'am. It has to be something personal to you. If you want what I do, I pay my time on the gross. Remember I said to you this morning, you can't beat God with it. If you're going to pay on the net, it means that you have taken care of some things before God came into the picture. So I can understand why someone would want to do that, because you are cutting off your own blessings. Okay, there are folks that get paid a basic salary and then commission or adjustment or involvement, whatever the organization calls it, and they tell themselves that is what a part of what they need to live, so it's not an income or an increase to them, so they don't return the tithe. I don't believe it. You start the month without it, at the end of the month, you have it, it's an increase to you, and God will be honored if you return to Him on everything that He has given to you.
There's also my voice. Okay. As a retiree on the pension.
Yes.
Okay. On the pension, do I pay but God,
Okay, let me say, but that's another way to look at it.
right? So I heard John Bachman say that. And he said, if you pay for Social Security, you've already paid time. I
Okay.
heard him say that.
Right.
But there's another side to it. Some people work for entities where their pension is non-participatory. So they made no contributions into that, but they still get it at the end of the day.
That's
So
right.
it is an increase to you. If portions of your funds are coming out that you have already retired, and you are willing to keep that record for 20 years or so, that works, then God help you. You can be poor living. If you want to return the time of your pension, let me tell you something, your pension will go so much further.
We get the queen takes care of the king now, the king takes care of the servants.
Yes,
And of course, you get a retirement pension
yes,
that you did not contribute to.
exactly.
You know, so people think that that's a growth.
Of course it is. I think it's about it. And personally, I prefer it's like a individual.
What I wanted to find out, this has always been source of discussion. If you're paid monthly and you return your tithes, 2 weeks into the month, someone gives you some extra funds. Is that also time and
Was it an increase to you? I know you know the answer. That is all increase. Question, Sister Jerry? Yes. It works the same way because what you pay from national insurance, the company that you worked for, pays a lot more than that international insurance for you. It's the same principle. Yeah. Okay? Last question. Okay. What?
Long time, but I'll tell you why. See this is the church today.
Okay. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is what I'm finding. Person when I'm tired. You know, can we do such and such in the afternoon?
Yeah.
I got a all right. And then on the talents, you would be aware that we have although there are a couple words to go, we got like what I'm about to say. You know, we have a joint outline plan.
Okay.
And I have to tell my I got invested time and money in keeping that bad moving. So that jungle groups can have their talent. I have a problem with our young people being enticed into jungle groups.
Okay. I am hearing what you're saying. Some things are personal, and there are some things that the church will not mandate, because a lot of things you have to go to Jesus for as an individual.
Yeah, but if the church isn't even opening their eyes to even think that, hey, can you praise God with the same thing that you are out there?
I think the church eyes are open, and let me say that the presentation that I gave this morning is one in a series of 7. I spoke about the stewardship of God. There's the regular time, talent, treasure, temple, but the gracious living is something that was developed in the Caribbean Union. I am just coming back from a holy convocation in Guyana that was sponsored through the IAD for the Conference of Guyana, and we had 58 sites. I spoke in a church for the entire week, and they had a central baptism at the end of the week. But there are a number of other presentations in it. I can give all of them to Pastor Williams. I'm also free to come back. I'm available throughout the conference. I work for the church. Okay, so it's not my property, and we have been told that we are free to use it far and wide because it was designed to bless the church.
How many sessions?
There are 7.
No, it's just that I remember seeing 8 different teams.
No, you're right. There are 8. You have time, temple,
Right.
treasure, tribe,
I saw tribe,
Testimony. oratory. The other 2 are not coming to me right now, but there are 8. Yes, talent, and
So you're going to give Pastor access to the
the
8?
entire. I have the entire set. I can give Pastor a copy of all of them. Okay,
Do those one at a time.
and Pastor Moore and Elder Moore, your scholarship director, is free to have access to it as well. It's a very comprehensive presentation. It covers everything, our influence, how we relate to people outside of the church, everything. So it's available. No, legacy giving comes under trust services.
Okay, all right.
So that's a separate department, but it is a department that is run parallel to the stewardship department. But
Because
it comes under trust services, where trust services deals with, like you said, legacy giving, with planned gifts to the church, with the creation of wills and all of these sorts of things. But it
because
is there.
that's a part, in my view, that's a part of your
Being
stewardship.
a good steward, yes.
Yes, that's a
Because
part of stewardship.
and as good stewards, we are told that we can affect the church even after we're dead and gone.
Yeah,
You know, my grandfather, when he died, he left properties on rent. And one of the things he had in his will was that the tithe from the properties must continue to go. And he specified which church he wanted it to be returned to. So it doesn't have to end at your demise once you understand the whole concept of being a faithful steward. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I enjoyed spending the day at Maranatha. Okay.
Thank you so much. These are the sort of seminars that we want to continue to run as a church, where we can train our people. You can invite persons from the community. I'm sorry we did not do a major launch to invite persons from the community. And the community is the areas immediately surrounding your church, your family, friends, co-workers, neighbors, etc. Because we on a little rock that's 7 by 21. So I don't know why people say it far. You love of traffic, but in Lutheran, my closest church was 21 miles away, the closest one. So I tell them no place in Nassau is far from me. It's just a matter of traffic. The furthest one was 60 miles, I think, or 48 miles from me, from where I live. So no place in Nassau is far from me when I need to get someplace. So let's stand and we'll close with prayer. Father, thank you so much for all that you have done. Thank you for the information that was shared. May we be good managers of the things you have given unto us, especially the funds and the other resources, to take care of ourselves, help others, and provide for the work of your church. Be with us now. In Jesus' name I pray. I want to remind us there will be no Bible classes tomorrow evening. I will be at the tent at the RM Bailey Park. It's in Creole, but they say if you come, they'll find someone to translate for you. So if you want to assist even, because I'll mainly be assisting, then come on down tomorrow evening, but we'll be there from tomorrow morning to help set up and prepare everything. Thank you so much. Good night, everyone.
Oh, oh, this is pleasant episode. Pleasant. This cat. Please. Yes. So. Stay with it. Right.